All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I am happy to be sitting here with Cameron Page, a fellow Cal Poly alumni. I guess start off with who I am. So I am Grant Robbins. I am one of the co-founders here at Billy. We are a software solution focused on the construction industry that helps reduce risk by providing customers and partners a way to manage and track insurance and certificates of insurance with all of their subcontractors, along with other compliance documents. I'm happy to be joined by Cameron because he's helping contractors with the software he developed avoid risk as well, but in another part of our industry. And let's be honest, construction is all about managing risk from start to finish. With that, I'm going to introduce Cameron. Say hello, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. Also a fellow Cal Poly San Luis Obispo alumni, so go Mustangs.
There you go.
Yeah, my background is, I've been in construction since I was 17. I started as an apprentice carpenter right around the time I started at Cal Poly and studied construction management there. I went to work in 2009, which, as we all recall, was a great time to join the commercial construction industry. But I was lucky enough to start with a company called DevCon Construction, worked there for about 9 years. And that's where I lived many of the challenges. And I got to say, I would probably have loved to have both of our products when I was managing, large scale construction projects. Because you're right, it is all about reducing risk. It's also about being more efficient. Being more efficient is what every good software product should do, but it's about a bigger philosophy around reducing risk and introducing, process behind the tools we use and stuff like that. So I'm excited to have the conversation with you. Before we, I think we're going to talk about change orders a lot today. Like, I'd love to hear a little more about Billy, just before we jump into the whole Clearstory discussion.
Absolutely. And yeah, you say that I would have loved to have had, Clearstory in my toolbox when I was working out. I mean, to go backwards a little bit, I graduated much earlier than Cameron and started out my career working at Whiting Turner and Centex Homes and owning my own company. When I started in this industry, it was everything was in paper logs and carbon copy forms and tablets of paper that you tore off and shared with people, and that was cumbersome. And so we've come a long way. Billy, I look at compliance in our industry as kind of three different buckets. You've got contracting compliance, which is everything we need in our business to get rolling up front. You need a signed contract, you need insurance, maybe W-9, business license, contractor's license, bond, safety agreement, all these things to say you are approved to go on site, you've met our criteria. And Billy really helps manage that. The other parts are on-site compliance, which is kind of you and risk management, among other things, and then payment compliance. And what Billy does is we provide a way, let's just use an example. You and I are out in our industries, or we're working with contract admins, and you write a contract, you got to go collect insurance. Everyone is great at sending that contract back because that's the thing that says, I'm going to get paid for doing this. But they forget about all those other documents. And so that initiates a need for people to start doing emails and phone calls. And those certificates come in, you have to review them against requirements, log it, track expiration dates. And that's all manual in our industry right now. Surprisingly, it's people typing into Excel, maybe putting it into Procore, maybe putting it into an ERP, but it's all manual and task oriented, and it creates a lot of opportunity for risk and not having people compliant on your projects. Billy automates that whole process and eliminates all of the manual process, the date tracking, the renewals, and the certificate review. So it's changing a lot of the ways that people are approaching kind of this whole compliance management process up front. So
yeah. And what's so cool about tools like Billy is, when you think about a risk control framework, the thing you want is a complete view, an accurate view, and things like that. And the challenge, of course, is if one person on the project is responsible for tracking down certificates of insurance, in my old world, we couldn't have a subcontractor step foot on site if they didn't have a certificate of insurance. But me, the project manager, or my superintendent who's trying to rush that person out to the job site, may not have that same complete view that the project admin does, right? And so there's such amazing low-hanging fruit for centralizing some of these processes and capturing them in one spot. And so obviously that's like the basic massive gain that you guys can provide. And I'm sure there's tons of other automation behind it to further streamline the process. But just getting a lot of these processes into a centralized place that's not only transparent within your team, but ideally transparent with the trade contractors you work with and your client and whoever else needs to collaborate in that process.
Yeah, you really just highlighted on a word. It's transparency internally and externally. I mean, our industry is, you got a team of people managing documents, and then you got all these people, and they might not be near or close to the project site. You got these people on the project site that is running at a rapid pace. And sometimes they're just assuming everything is taken care of for them. And really, Clearstory and Billy are trying to really connect those things, and through integrations with things like Procore and whatnot, it really helps expand that out even more. So it's transparency. It's a key. It's a key.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it, and we can keep that kind of thread alive. It'd be good to hear your worldview of and hopefully not bringing up too many painful memories of T&M tickets and change order requests, but just to jump back here. So I think talking about risk avoidance at a high level, I'm going to walk through a couple of slides on kind of a Clearstory overview of how we approach risk capture and also productivity. And then I'm actually going to jump into a quick product demo of the tool itself. And then if we can, we'll open it up to Q&A.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
So our simple philosophy is, when project teams can capture and close change orders faster, all stakeholders win. And this presentation is kind of geared towards the general contractor worldview of the change order request process. But our company, Clearstory, we work with all stakeholders. So specialty contractors can buy our product and use it to communicate change order risk across all their jobs with all their general contractor. They can improve workflows, but a lot of it's around communication and that word transparency you mentioned, Grant. But for general contractors, when you can capture and close change orders faster, all stakeholders win. And our simple perspective is, as change orders accumulate on projects that are not closed out, risk increases, right? Just because the sheer dollar value and magnitude of change orders that need to be accounted for grows bigger. And so if we all want that outcome, if everyone wins, the question then is, well, why don't we just work towards that outcome? And there's challenges. We call it the change order gap. And as the state of software tools in our industry today, everyone has their system of record. Everyone has change order management software where they manage change orders internally against their project budget. So a general contractor will create a PCO. They'll start entering the line items and forecast how that PCO is going to change their project budget. The challenge, though, is that you don't want your trade partners in your financial software, and nor do you want your client in there either. And nor do your trade partners. They're each using their own either accounting software or project financial software. And so the end result, and Grant, I'm sure you've experienced this, is to create alignment and transparency, we have to operate outside of those systems. And unfortunately, the tool set available is pretty analog, right? It's email correspondence. It's we believe it's one of the most important documents in construction, which is the change order log, a list of outstanding change orders sent back and forth between each company, each contract. But again, those static documents are inherently out of date the second they're sent, right? And so you always have this feeling of I'm behind when you're trying to understand your change order risk exposure on every job.
Sorry, I was just going to jump in. I didn't mean to derail you. This is a great visual. You call it the gap. I call it the canyon. Because it's, I started my life with, like I said, paper documents, and it took forever to process. And it's interesting how while maybe technology has started to grow, we have more sophisticated accounting software or the Procores or other things that you're using, for some reason, those change orders still become incredibly cumbersome. And in our industry, if you don't, this is what always resonated with me, or when I would train people, they will pile up. And as they pile up, they get forgotten or they diminish in their importance. And then you're in a negotiation because you've kind of forgotten about it, and they need to be addressed when they're fresh in everyone's mind. And part of the problem is you can never gather the information you need to have the proper conversation. And I think that's really what you're providing, is that opportunity to advance that in a much more proactive way. Um, yeah, I love it. I just laughed because it's not a
Yeah.
gap; it's huge.
Yeah, I love the candy. We might have to start running with that. And of course, the other document on here that everyone, probably cringes to even look at is the extra work authorization, T&M ticket, extra work order. Everyone, T&M slip if you're on the East Coast. And it's really everyone's like most hated document. But the fact is, it's actually a really good tool to track out of contract work. And the reason why it's a good tool is you might need 10 guys to work overtime on Saturday. As a general contractor, it'd be great to understand the cost, but I don't want to commit to that cost until I know how many guys actually showed up, how many hours they all worked. And then I want my superintendent to sign off and verify that they actually did spend those hours, right? Because if only 8 people show up and then 3 of them leave early, I'd rather not pay the full 10 people to be there a full 8 hours, right? And so the T&M process exists for a reason, to document the scope of work that was performed on the job site, have it be verified for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trade partner needs to go price it with ideally pre-approved rates. And there's so many different pieces that are manual as that process to tie it all together. It makes it really painful, and it makes it so everyone hates that process. But in theory, it's actually an efficient way to track extra work. And so again, these are the areas that fall in this canyon that we really focus on at Clearstory.
Yeah, I love it. In those T&M tickets, it's real time. Like every company, every general contractor has something in their contract that says if you're doing T&M work and don't submit a T&M ticket at the end of the day for authorization, you're not going to get paid for it. The problem is, and I've been in construction trailers, so, foremen walk in with this stack of T&M tickets to the superintendent, and they're busy, they don't have time, something happens, it backs up, oh, I'll get to you in the morning, and then the morning gets away from them. Those things, to have an opportunity for a way to make that process easier or to facilitate how it runs downstream, that's huge.
Yeah.
And to your point, I think it's important.
Yeah, and going back to that concept of like having a risk control framework where it's, the simple question, how do I know I've accounted for every T&M ticket my superintendent has signed, right? Such a simple, fundamental question. But we work with GCs all over the country and outside the US, and it's honestly a question that no GC can really answer in a good way. Yeah. Everyone, we would love to have this process where our superintendent brings the ticket into the trailer and then we log it in an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is, but it's so hard to actually do in practice that you don't have that complete view. So there's just inherently risk because it's really hard to understand how many of those have actually been signed for. And then the next challenge comes in where, okay, maybe you have solved that problem. How do you know each one has been priced? Because the last thing you want to do is have your superintendent sign for cost out on the job site. You're going to wait for the trade partner to actually price that change order request. And we found that the average across, a pretty wide swath is about 30 days. But it's 30 days because some companies are doing it in a week. Many companies are doing it in 60, 70, 80, 90 days, or they're forgetting about it until the very end of the job and they open up a drawer of tickets. And then we just negotiate it. The trade partner loses money on work they've rightfully done. We have to go hat in hand to our client or figure out a way to, maybe it causes fee erosion. It's just not a good outcome for everyone. And the other thing is about making proactive decisions. Like if you're doing a lot of T&M work, but you're not understanding the cost until 3 months later, you don't have the ability to say, hey guys, hold off. We're at our budget. We're the not to exceed price has been hit. So again, it's really about making proactive decisions.
That's, and I know you got more slides. We're sitting here just having a killer chat about this, but I cannot tell you how that last statement you made of not being able to properly forecast where you're headed with the budget because you don't have an understanding and awareness of where you're currently at with changes is the kiss of death in our industry, because you have these contingencies or whatever they might be, and your owner's sitting there going, I think we're pretty good on contingency. And maybe they're thinking in their mind, maybe I'll use some of that money to upgrade something, put some furniture on the patio or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
And then all of a sudden, 3 months down the road, all of a sudden you hit them and you're like, we're out of contingency and we're in change order mode. The problem with that is that gap in communication has now eroded your relationship with that owner and created friction for everything that you do moving forward. And that is a gigantic problem in our industry as a whole, is that erosion of communication or positivity per se. And it all stems from things like this.
Well, and the opposite is true. And the opposite is true too, right? If you're being too conservative in your allowances and contingencies because you're scared to death. I switched to the iceberg slide because you're like, you're going to exactly like our key slide here. But if you're so scared that you're going to have something lurking below the surface that's going to mess up your contingency or one of your allowances, that you're holding off letting your client use one of those, that can actually be a really negative impact. And if you're so conservative, at the end of the job, you say, hey, client, here's $1 million savings that we're going to give back to you. That might actually end your relationship with the client. And you may not think of it that way, but some of our most pissed off clients have come from giving them money back at the end of the job because they're going to say, hey, had I known I had that $1 million while you guys were all on site, I would have done this to the atrium in the lobby, or I would have upgraded the carpet, or I would have done whatever.
Yeah.
And now to go back in an occupied building and make those changes, they can't. And so, a lot of times they've already allocated these resources and budgets to this project, and they want to maximize the value of the asset they're building. And if we're so scared of where we're at in cost, we can't let them fully utilize that budget. That can cause friction too. So it can really happen in both directions. So your point about getting to a real-time state is super important. And so really our goal as a product and a company is to help get data into whatever your system of record is faster, more transparently, and then create alignment between you, your trade partner, and you and your client. And the things below the iceberg are where we see fee erosion happening, budget busts happening, surprises happening. And so again, our whole goal is to elevate the change order canyon, I'll call it, up above the surface. So again, your forecast is more accurate.
Yeah, I like your iceberg too, because if it goes wrong, if you've ever seen an iceberg flip, it's a dangerous situation. So the same thing goes in construction. If you don't manage that property and that thing rotates, you're in a world of hurt.
That's a good point. And so, for the sake of time, like just jump into kind of I'm going to walk you through our philosophy around how to capture all your change order risk. And then I'll walk you through how our software actually works in a quick diagrammatical view. But we think of it in three kind of different areas. So the first one is pricing requests. And with this big shift to design build, and just with the way projects are designed by architects, the way stakeholders are brought in early, the more complexity on projects, we've seen a massive uptick in addendums, bulletins, ASIs that are being sent out after contracts are awarded. And so you're almost like doing these mini rebids throughout the entire project. And so we call those pricing exercises. We have a feature called change notifications where you can distribute those to your trade partners, set a deadline of when the costs are back. But the whole idea is that all those change order request responses, whether it's no cost impact or here is the cost, it's all captured in the same change order request log back in Clearstory. T&M tickets, same thing. So we have a super easy to use mobile app that trade partners can use. They can even pre-import their approved labor rates so they can be automatically priced. So within the minutes of T&M work being performed in the field, you can actually see the cost. But again, the key concept is that the associated change order request is logged in Clearstory in the same location. And then the third one is contractor initiated. So maybe you send out a submittal response and you say, hey, if there's any cost, we need it back in 2 weeks. Instead of them emailing you that cost, the requirement is that they're going to upload it into Clearstory. And then what's so powerful about that is whenever you want to see a change order log from any one trade partner, you simply filter it inside of Clearstory, and now you have their entire change order list that they see and you see. So you don't have to ask them for an updated change order log. It's all there in real time. And then once everything's in the software, we can help you facilitate the review process with our annotation and markup tools to actually review and redline the change order requests, request revisions, all that kind of stuff. And then we can help you push it into your ERP. But the key thing on this slide is these 3 buckets that we really focus on. We believe if you can capture those 3 buckets, you can really understand your full change order risk the second the transaction happens.
Let me just walk. I like the buckets, by the way. I think that's it's accurate in the way our industry works, and I know I'm going to just kind of pile on, but I just Billy for me is a more recent endeavor than you have with Clearstory, and so I was still in the industry up until quite 4 or 5 years ago. But you are correct in the sense the way the industry is going, because it's so fast paced, that you're getting addendums where you're on bulletin number 15 as you're building a project, and to keep track of that stuff just in and of itself is a full-time job. And so I love the fact that you've broken it up and allowing people to do it, because another key feature here that I'm sure you address is your superintendent might be paying attention a lot more to those T&M tickets, but your project engineer might be really paying attention to those bulletins, so that you can have these people that need to focus on what they're focusing on without extra noise. It helps just, again, push that progress forward to get to that end result. So
yeah,
great job.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's our whole philosophy, is getting the data to the right people transparently and creating alignment. And this slide is kind of recapping of some of what I just mentioned, but the key thing is that it's a shared change order request log. So in our software, you can create a contract either upstream with your client, downstream with your trade partners, and then you invite them each to their own contract. And in their account, they can see the contract you've invited them to. If they're a Clearstory customer, they can also see all the other projects they're working on with other GCs. So the important thing to understand is that our software is a network. So everyone has their own account and you can share data between accounts. But everything revolves around this shared COR log. And so again, the easiest way to get started with our software is actually not everyone uses all the different workflows and tools that we offer. Because the easiest way to get started is simply make it a project requirement that instead of emailing change order requests, your trade partners have to upload into Clearstory. So all they have to do is, instead of sending an email, they're going to drag and drop their PDF of their change order request document. And you can get started on it in 15 minutes. Like, there is really not a lot of lift to getting that going. That's the bare minimum. But what's so cool is from there, you get a ton of value that we offer. So the first thing is, with that shared change order request log, you can collaborate around the review and approval process. So me as a GC, I would download my change order request to a file folder, and then I would open them in Bluebeam. I would redline things. I would say, this labor rate is not correct, this tax rate is not right, or maybe it's just simply like, I need a breakdown. But again, that would either happen through a Bluebeam markup or an email correspondence, and then I have to wait for them to respond. And so what's so cool about Clearstory is you can do your red lines in our software, you can mark it, revise, and resubmit, and you can put it back in the trade partner's court. They can log in, see all of your comments, and they can click submit revision. They upload a new version of that change order request, and the version control is all tracked within our system. And again, you can get all that value by just simply making the upload a requirement. And then we do offer a lot of integrations with other systems of record. So we integrate with Procore, with CMIC. We just launched one with HCSS, Sage. Vista is just about to go live. We've integrated with PlanGrid for a long time. And we also have an open API. And what's so cool is that once you've captured everything in Clearstory, you now have a ground source truth of what your trade partner thinks is outstanding. And
Right.
you can use that to filter and make sure you have everything in your system of record. So when you're doing your forecast, which as a GC, we would look at our general conditions and forecast that out to the end of the job. And then the main thing we would look at other than that is our change order forecast. What change orders have we received, and are they actually somewhere in the forecast? And the challenge is, even as a PM, because of that iceberg slide, I didn't always feel super confident that we had everything in there, let alone the CFO who was reviewing our forecast. They had truly no way of knowing that we had actually accounted for everything. And so again, just making that simple requirement of uploading PDFs we can tie out a ton of the work stream and really dramatically reduce risk. From there, though, we offer a bunch of workflows. So one of the ones that GCs love the most is what you mentioned, Grant. We call them change notifications. So whenever you have that bulletin, you select the trades that are affected. You can do a select all as well. Give them a deadline, attach the documents. You can pull in documents from Procore, from PlanGrid, from shared drives, send them out to the trade partners, give them a deadline, and then you can track who's opened it, who's downloaded the documents, and obviously who's responded. So it really gives you the ability to be proactive in getting those responses back. And then everything winds up back in the COR log where you can do the review process. And then just for the sake of time, I'm going to keep clicking ahead here. Some GCs gravitate straight towards our T&M tickets because it's such a frustrating part of the industry. And some people actually start by just mandating our T&M tickets on projects. We recommend actually starting with uploading change order requests, but the product can be used in different ways. And so we have a super easy to use mobile app. Trade partners love it. About 70% of our customers are specialty contractors, just because this is such a painful part of their business. They really gravitate towards this tool. And we designed it to be ridiculously easy to use. So a foreman can be trained in 15 minutes, and all they're going to do is fill out a field ticket, document their labor, material, equipment, take photos of their work. But then what's so powerful is that the ticket is logged for both the general contractor and the trade partner in their Clearstory account. And so again, when it talks about like complete view of risk, this provides you that complete view of T&M risk. Grant, I think I cut you off a minute ago. Do you have anything to add there?
No. I'm trying to, you were jamming. I didn't want to tie in, but a couple things I just kind of want to highlight is I think one of the ancillary benefits is that I would see, thinking as a general contractor, is you're also enhancing everyone's accountability along that process. Just because kind of through transparency in real time, people aren't, I don't want to say playing with numbers, but you don't have that opportunity anymore because it's real time and you're sharing it and it impacts things and they see that impact. And I really think that helps just drive a higher level of professionalism per se with dealing with all of these things. Even those T&M tickets that kind of sometimes are just, you can barely read them because they're scribbled out and there's not enough description. And then you think it's enough. And 3 months later, you go back and read it and you're like, I don't even know what this means anymore. So much has gone on. Like that happens all the time. I also love your thing about kind of the assistance with, I always call it the estimated cost of completion. You're trying to figure out where's this project headed, and it's all about your change orders. And you've probably done this too. You're walking around the superintendent. Hey, is there anything I'm aware of? I'm doing the update. Like, what's going on that I should be aware of? The fact that conversation needs to happen is ridiculous in our day and age, because there should be tools like this. Well, there are tools like this that provide that visibility so that you can have those accurate reporting. Because you're right, that CFO or PX is sitting there basically having faith that you have all the information, and you're relying on, if you're not using Clearstory, potentially broken processes that are getting you 70% there. I don't know. So yeah, I think it's fantastic.
And the challenge is like, every system has, the concept of a PCO, a potential change order. And of course, the challenge with that is it requires manual data entry. It requires the team to have received it in an email, saved it somewhere, and then taken the time to enter it. But guess what? Project teams are super busy. And again, the processes are fragmented and they're in different places, and the trade partners are trying to keep up as well. And so what's been so cool about bringing Clearstory to market and growing, the company is that when a GC brings this to the project, usually their first reaction is like, oh man, I got to require my trades to do yet another thing. But we actually have like a pre-canned email template that we give to the GCs to send to their trade partners. Mm-hmm. And it's simply, the message is simply, hey guys, we're using this tool to help all of us better communicate out of contract costs on the project and reduce risk for all of us. And then I think we even add, some of the things that's going to eliminate, hey, we're not going to have to ask you for an updated change order log every month. We're not going to miss your misplace your documents. So we've seen really strong adoption and buy-in from the trade partners, and we really treat our GCs like partners. You guys are a customer of ours, so you're a partner regardless, but you're also helping us share the tool with other trade partners as well. So we really value our GC partnerships beyond just being a customer. So I think that's it for the slides. I think let me see if I have any more here. So I'm just quickly going to touch on this, and again, like we like to kind of quantify the different areas of ROI or key impacts, and the first is productivity efficiency gains. Again, the change order process is fraught with manual steps, and so by just automating the steps without even reinventing the process, we can save teams tons of time. Reducing the risk of fee erosion is obviously huge. Also reducing the risk of claim avoidance. But then beyond that, just increasing, trade partner and client relationships, improving communication, being proactive, helping your clients make data-driven decisions, knowing the project costs, can be hard to quantify, but they can really be profound as a general contractor. And with that, I think I'll jump over into the demo. Grant, was there anything else you wanted to touch on? Grant might have frozen for a second, so I'm gonna jump over to the demo. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here for just a moment. And it looks like we've lost Grant, so I'm gonna do a quick demo, and then we'll let you guys go on your way. So this is Clearstory. This is the application itself. I'll just jump here. The interface, if it looks really simple, it's designed to be that way. You wanted it to be not intimidating for trade partners, easy for them to understand where things live. And again, the way to get them onboarded is simply to create a project, create a contract for them, and invite them to that. The onboarding process from them from there is basically effortless. So I'm going to do a quick, kind of high level harbor tour. And of course, if you guys really want to like dig into this thing and see the full tour, and even if you want to kick the tires and try it out, like please contact our team and we can set up a proper demo. But again, like I mentioned, the shared change order request log in our software is kind of where everything lives. And so again, without doing any manual data entry, your team can see a list of every change order request that's been sent to every trade partner, from every trade partner on the job. And then from there, there's a bunch of ways to filter and slice and dice this log, just like you probably would in Excel. So you can filter by contractor, by contract, PCO number, status, stage, responsible party, a lot of different ways to slice and dice this. But what's nice is you have a summary at the top here, and then each line item, again, represents a change order request you've seen. So if you want to look at any PDF of the COR that was sent, you simply click View Detail, and it jumps you into this page that we call the change order review page. So this is actually an example of one of the change order request templates that you can have your trade partners fill out. If you're using the basic version of our software, you can just make it a requirement for them to upload a copy of their change order request. But from here, you can see a full 360-degree view of everything that's happened on this COR. So the data was sent, the amount that it was sent, an activity feed, which acts as a digital paper trail of the change order request. And then from there, you can actually do your review. So like if I think this, let's see, if I think the tax rate is wrong for some reason, I can circle that. And then I can actually annotate it with a call out and say, this is not the correct tax rate. I can post this comment. And then when I click request revision, my trade partner is going to be sent an email with a link to go in and review all my comments. And in their account, there's a big button that says submit revision. And then what's cool is at the top here, you can go back in time and see every version of this change order request, how it's evolved and negotiated. And you can even export that activity feed as backup documentation. So you can kind of show to your client the review process you went through on their behalf.
This is long overdue in our industry. Yeah, I know you've been around for a while, but this is this is exactly what is still done with pen and paper and a scanner or Bluebeam or whatever. And it's, that ability to annotate is key in our business, because it's so hard to relay what you're talking about in just a random email. It creates so much back and forth, which again delays that process. So fantastic.
Yeah. And what's so cool about it, again, being from the industry, I knew how important it was for this to still be a PDF process. Like, contractors have to feel secure that the document they sent is immutable, right? So that's why we have the concept of version control, right? Where,
Right.
instead of editing some digital form, this is actually a PDF, you're marking it up and you're facilitating and streamlining the back and forth process. But we're not doing away with the formal documentation that gets sent back and forth, right? Which is like a subtle difference, but it's really important for contractors to feel comfortable using something like this.
Well, you're exactly right. You have to respect their concerns that their items are getting, manipulated. I think another thing that's really important too is that you're putting it all in one place. So often, if you're marking it up or PDFing it or whatever, Bluebeam, your superintendent's got a bunch stored in a folder on his, laptop hard drive, and it just, no one knows where all this information is. It has poor descriptions. You don't know what version you're looking at, and so I think it's really important for everyone to just understand the fact that keeping data in one place so that you can track it and manage it in all the versions that happen, because there are multiple versions with every single thing we do in our business. That's a huge element.
Yeah. Especially in the change order request process too, right? Because you're dealing with real dollars, right? And you really want to see where you're at. Just for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going. And like I said, if someone wants to dig in more and really see a demo, like let us know. What I'm showing here on the screen, and we always use Dunder Mifflin because we feel like the T&M ticket is one of the last things that Dunder Mifflin would really be selling. But the this is an example of our cover sheet, and some GCs are requiring this as their cover sheet, and obviously many trade partners use this as their cover sheet. But again, what's nice is that it structures it in a breakdown of labor, material, equipment. And if you are a trade partner listening to this, as a general contractor, this is what our clients ask for. So whenever we ask for a breakdown, it's not just because we're trying to be, anal or like really over the top. It's because it's what our clients are going to ask for when we show them the backup. So this helps the trade partner fill it out in a format that not only helps us review it faster, but also helps our client review it faster. And then of course, like the really low hanging fruit, this is an example of one of our T&M tags. And when we started the company, I was very particular around having the format of this be crystal clear, intuitive, easy for everyone to understand. Because as you receive, and I always have one sitting next to me, as you receive, I'll hide the logo, but as you receive these babies out on the job site, they're in different formats. And a project engineer fresh out of college trying to review them, it's really hard. And what's even harder is trying to explain them to your client. And so by using our mobile app, this is the PDF that gets produced, again, with like that immutable signature block by both parties. As a general contractor, you can set up your standard, rubber stamp, like we can do that digitally in the software. But then the really important thing is you can take photos of your work. And again, it just sounds so simple, but if you're repairing trade damage, take a picture of the trade damage, take a picture of it after you fixed it, submit that with a T&M tag, because if we're going to back charge another contractor, it makes it so easy for us to have that conversation. And then the faster you do it, we have the ability to be proactive with that other contractor so they can stop damaging the walls or stop causing back charge work. So, it's challenges that we all experience, and there's actually tools now to help solve it and mitigate it. Keep going, Grant. I'm going to click ahead, but keep you had a thought there.
No, I'm sorry. I'm also just trying to be cognizant of time. I know we've got a couple of questions we want to get answered, and we're kind of just bantering back and forth about the woes of our construction industry. So just want to make sure we're paying attention to time.
Yeah. The last two things I'll just click on is, again, when it comes to the ability to have a complete and accurate view of your T&M exposure. And we talk with a lot of GCs, and it's like, oh, we don't do any T&M work. And I hate to say it, as a general contractor, it's not possible to not have paint touch up or trade damage or work overtime on a project. And the best way to track it, it really is T&M. And so most general contractors, deal with this process, and unfortunately, most are reliant on their trade partner's process for tracking it. And so this is a way to be proactive, bring them technology to reduce risk for everyone. And again, it's the same concept as our COR log. Every ticket is logged. Labor hour summary of what's been signed off for is up at the top. And then a log overview of by status is at the top as well. And again, this can be filtered, exported to Excel, PDF, all that kind of stuff. And then the last thing I'll just quickly touch on is, I'll just touch on two things really, really fast. This is our change notification log. So every bulletin, design change, addendum that's been sent, you can see quickly how many contractors you sent it to and how many have responded. This is my demo account. And so every single one of mine are past due. And so we show you this little red exclamation point. Ideally, that wouldn't be the case if you're actually using our software. And the last thing I'll just touch on really quickly is our days aging report.
Wow.
Which is so powerful for a general contractor, project executive, or VP, or person in the accounting department. Because what you want to know is which jobs have change order requests sitting in review for the longest. And if you go back to that original slide we had where risk curve goes up, the longer change order requests are sitting in review. This report gives you the ability as an executive to have a bird's eye view on jobs that maybe are falling into that scenario, without having to tap the PM on the shoulder and have them go through a bunch of hoops just to tell you they're okay or tell you they're behind.
Yes.
And so it kind of introduces a new way to even manage your project managers and communicate risk as well.
I worked with a superintendent that always said, what gets measured gets done. And this is a measurement of how things aren't getting done or the time frames, because it allows you to just, it brings clarity. I mean, I overuse the word transparency, but it brings clarity to the impacts that those things have. Because I guarantee you, if you've got something in that 120-day aging, that's starting to impact conversations, communications with owners or subs or anything else like that. And it brings visibility into it. So that's killer.
Yep.
I like this.
All right. Well, with that, I will stop sharing. And, hopefully we got some good questions. I do know there were, some challenges getting people in. So if there are people who listen to this after the fact and have questions for us, again, like I said, happy to hop on and answer any questions in real time. But Grant, did any questions come in?
Yeah, we got a couple. So one is, tell us a little bit about your integration with Procore.
Yeah, definitely. So
is it two-way? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. It is two-way. It's very purpose-built integration, I would say. And so whenever you're creating things in our software, whether it's a change notification or a T&M tag or change order request, you can pull Procore files in as backup documents. So whether you're a trade partner using it or a general contractor sending things out, you can pull things from your Procore account in. But the bigger integration is with every received COR, you can push directly into a change event with the click of a button. So what that does is it lets the project manager decide where in Procore it goes, which it eliminates the data entry completely, right? Because your trade partner is the one who's submitting it to you through Clearstory. You're receiving it effortlessly, and then you're pushing it into Procore. So eliminating chain data entry is always important in integrations. The bigger thing that it does, though, is we link to every change event within Clearstory. So all you have to do is filter for the received change order requests that don't have change events created or attached to, and you will know instantly every COR that isn't yet in Procore. So it really tells you this in a powerful way. Here's the view of all the risk that is not yet somewhere in a change event within Procore. So yes, and then the status ties out. If you receive a revision in Clearstory, we alert you that it no longer matches the line item in the change event. So there's a bunch of different spots to it. And the other cool thing is you can set it up with a couple clicks. Like it's a really easy integration to get live.
That's cool. You actually used a term a while back that triggered for me about simplicity. Whenever we reviewed software at my company, I had one thing I would repeat all the time. It is only as useful as it is easy to use, especially in our industry. So complexity means workaround. Let's see, another one. Someone from an accounting department is saying, how does it help keep accounting PMs in the field kind of all on the same page as to what's been submitted, the invoice, the T&M tickets, things like that? Their concern is people getting paid for things that aren't approved and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, it goes back to that transparency thing. And, again, the change order request log as a project manager, like that was our source of truth to keep alignment with each trade partner. But again, because that's a static document and it's prone to version control and saving the different versions. And then once you have a version, where are all the associated files, right? And so by centralizing the change order request log for the PM and making it transparent with the trade partner, you now have alignment on the risk. And what's really cool is back in Clearstory, you can invite the accounting team, which most of our customers do. So as they're doing some sort of forecast or work in place process, or just analyzing contracts or pay applications, they can instantly see the change order request exposure, not only in the PM's view, but also that's aligned with the trade partner as well as upstream with the client. So it's really, in accounting terms, we would call it a way to tie out that those two things are accurate. And so it does. And again, if there's an integration, there's a bunch of different workflows that we can sit down and discuss with you of who and how and when something gets pushed over from Clearstory to the accounting software.
This is killer. So Cameron, I love learning more about your product and how you really are helping, partnering with not only general contractors, but specialty contractors to really, quite honestly, clean up this massive change order process. I love how our companies kind of align. We're based on risk and risk avoidance. Billy is helping companies up front before they get on site and have to fill out T&M tickets, keeping all that insurance risk and compliance risk automated and providing all the tools to do it right. And then you guys really taking control and providing a killer tool to companies to manage it, and integrations that are helpful. And both of us providing transparency in our business. So look at that. Cal Poly can have people that not just become great project executives, but maybe after years in the business realize that there are solutions that will help our industry as well. So I appreciate your time. I'm obviously let you have a closing. I'm not trying to just run you out the door, but
no, that was a good way to wrap it up. I think the Cal Poly, if we're really layering, people who don't go to Cal Poly always hate people who talk about Cal Poly, but the motto of learn by doing is Cal Poly's motto. And I think people who have learned the challenges in the industry by actually doing it, boots on the ground, and then take that knowledge to go build tools to make the process better, I think is a really great way of approaching construction technology. And I think it's clear that, that shows up in both of our products because it's things we've lived and challenges we've had. So no, I think that's a great way to wrap it up. And hopefully we didn't go too long, but hopefully it was valuable. And like I said, we'd love to chat with anyone who wants to learn more.
Yeah, likewise, both of us. You can find us online. We'll do some follow-up emails to everybody so you have some information on both of our companies so that they can know, how to find us and how to book demos and whatnot. But again, Cameron, thank you for your time. Truly appreciate it. I know we'll be bumping into each other here, future conventions or meetings, whatnot. But take care, and we will chat soon. Thank you, everybody.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.